This Honourable House is now in session. Minutes of the meeting held on Tuesday, the 18th of September 2018.
Mr. Speaker, sir, welcome back. I beg to move that the minutes of the proceedings of the Honourable House of Assembly at its meeting of Tuesday, the 18th of September 2018, which have been circulated, be taken as read.
Beg to second that, sir.
Question is that the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of September be read as held. If there are no observations or corrections, let those minutes stand confirmed.
Messages from Her Excellency the Governor General, petitions, papers, government notices.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following. The Debt Holder Approval of Debt Restructuring Bill 2018, as well as of the National Insurance and Social Security Amendment Number 2 Bill 2018.
Private members' notices. Notices of questions. Reports from select committees. First reading of bills.
I'd like to move the first reading of the National Insurance and Social Security Amendment Number 2, Bill 2018.
Question is that this bill be read the first time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Debt Holder Approval of Debt Restructuring Bill 2018 be read a first time.
Question is that the aforementioned bill be read for the first time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it.
Statements by ministers. Congratulatory and/or obituary speeches. Personal explanations. Motions for leave of absence. Oral replies to questions. Notices of motions for the adjournment of the House on matters of urgent public importance. Orders of the day.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that standing orders number 6, 16, 18, 20, 42, 5, 43, and 44 be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting.
Beg to second that.
Question is that those aforementioned standing orders be suspended for the remainder of the day's sitting. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. We think the ayes have it. Government business is now the order of the day. Honourable member for Christchurch East Central.
Mr. Speaker, the bill before Parliament today is to ensure the fair treatment of all creditors and a timely resolution to the government of Barbados' debt restructuring process. The bill will provide for certain individuals and institutions holding treasury bills, treasury notes, and debentures issued or guaranteed by the government of Barbados, certain individuals and institutions holding certain other Barbados dollar-denominated debt instruments incurred or guaranteed by the government, state-owned enterprises, or government-supported entities to facilitate the restructuring of all those instruments through the voting process set out in this bill, and to bind all the affected creditors to the terms of the comprehensive debt restructuring proposals where a specified supermajority of those creditors approve the proposals. Mr. Speaker, as you're aware, on June 1st of this year, the government of Barbados announced that it will be suspending debt payments for external debt, and then signaled that we will embark on a comprehensive debt restructuring of Barbados's public debt. Since then, the government, through the Ministry of Finance, have engaged a range of stakeholders who all hold various securities issued by the government of Barbados, and we have sought to engage as widely as possible. We have done so successfully, sir, to the point where on September 7th, we were able to issue an exchange offer to holders of domestic debt in Barbados, which is currently being under consideration. As you are aware, Mr. Speaker, this has been a tough ask for the government of Barbados, from the perspective that having inherited on the 24th of May of this year a financial situation that has been the worst ever handed to any government in the history of Barbados, that this government had to take clear and decisive action in order to maintain the stability of our exchange rate, Mr. Speaker. We did not suspend external debt payments because it was on a whim. We wanted to ensure that every Barbadian, as they go about their business, that there's clear certainty with respect to what will stabilize this economy. We have engaged Barbadians not just throughout the campaign, but certainly whilst in government. And I am yet to meet a Barbadian, Mr. Speaker, who does not want to keep the fixed exchange rate. And because of the actions of the previous government, Mr. Speaker, informed by completely flawed economic policy, this government, we made the determination that we had to embark on a comprehensive debt restructuring exercise the likes have never been seen before any part of the globe. And Mr. Speaker, it is important that Barbadians understand the context in which this exercise is being rolled out. And I want to be clear to you and to the people of Barbados, through you, Mr. Speaker, that debt in of itself is not a bad thing, because Barbados, as we see it today, would have been built out. Our physical infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, would have been built out since 1966, because every government would have ensured that it covered its operating expenses, so to speak, and to make sure that it embarked on a capital works program that would have incurred debt such that the surpluses that government would have been running with respect to its budget were able to finance the debt that we would have incurred through those capital works programs. Let me explain, sir. We have 22 secondary schools in Barbados today, but they were not all built at the same time. We have a number of police stations, polyclinics, about almost 80 primary schools, Mr. Speaker. These were built out over the course of our development period since independence, Mr. Speaker. They were not all built at the same time. We have a comprehensive road network infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, that was built out over that time, and we would have used capital expenditure as a means to build out the capacity of this country on our development trajectory. And so, Mr. Speaker, successive governments, as I said, running surpluses on their current account would have ensured that for each primary school or each secondary school or each polyclinic that would have been built out over the period of time, that we were able to finance the payments, the debt that we would have incurred to build those. Because we simply did not have all the money to build all the infrastructure that we have in Barbados at one time. And so therefore, responsible governments set about managing its affairs to ensure that as we develop as a country, that we did so responsibly. That we were able to make sure that what services government was providing to the public, that they were able to be delivered whilst we built out our infrastructure. And we did that, Mr. Speaker, from 1966 until the end of 2007, without much fanfare or alarm, Mr. Speaker. To the point where at the end of 2007, Mr. Speaker, the public debt of Barbados was approximately $6.5 billion. So for the benefit of all Barbadians, when they would have purchased, whether it's treasury bills, savings bonds, debentures, treasury notes, over the years, those monies that Barbadians would have lent to the government helped to build out, whether it's a primary school, secondary school, polyclinic, fire station, police station, post office, whatever you see in Barbados today, Mr. Speaker. Successive governments used those monies to build out the lifestyle that we have come to know in Barbados. And so at the end of 2007, approximately $6.5 billion in debt we had accumulated in order to deliver that infrastructure. But what's the important element, Mr. Speaker? In 2007, our country's total income, GDP, was $9.1 billion. And as we all know in our household, Mr. Speaker, we don't ever spend more than we take in. Because it's important that you understand that whether you have a mortgage or you're paying rent, that's a part of your revenue or your income, Mr. Speaker, that we, over time, in the case of a mortgage, when you go to the bank assesses your income and your capacity to pay that mortgage over a 25 or 30-year period. And it's the same principle, Mr. Speaker, that successive governments would have undertaken with respect to building out in terms of the development of this country. So in 2007, we had $6.5 billion and all the major infrastructure in Barbados was in place. Queen Elizabeth Hospital, Mr. Speaker, we had an airport, the seaport, and all the various infrastructure that we have in Barbados today was present in 2007, Mr. Speaker. When we came back into office a few months ago, and I want to make this point abundantly clear, through you, Mr. Speaker, to the people of Barbados. We inherited a public debt of almost $15 billion. $15 billion, Mr. Speaker. Almost $9 billion in 10 years the previous administration incurred. But all of the basic infrastructure that we know in Barbados is still the same. And worse, as my colleagues are pointing out, because the roads are horrible. So I just want to make that point clear through you, Mr. Speaker, to the people. At the end of 2007, we had approximately $6.5 billion in debt. And we had all the basic infrastructure that we had in place as a developing country that exists today. The previous administration incurred almost $9 billion in extra debt, Mr. Speaker, yet we still got the same airport. As a matter of fact, the Minister of Tourism will tell you that the ratings for the airport during that period of time deteriorated significantly. The seaport, Mr. Speaker, is still the same. And the Minister for Maritime Affairs, the honourable member for St. Michael South, will tell you what the reports are saying about the Bridgetown Port. The roads in Barbados are worse than today, Mr. Speaker, than they were in 2007, Mr. Speaker. A raft of our public buildings, Mr. Speaker, today, there are various environmental issues, whether it's a school or office buildings, Mr. Speaker. Where did this money go? Because with $9 billion in extra debt, we should have had at least 2 more hospitals, Mr. Speaker. We should have had 2 more airports, Mr. Speaker. Because you cannot, well, and a seaport. Because, Mr. Speaker, the people need to appreciate that responsible governments in the past ensured that our development took place in a framework that allowed their lives, Mr. Speaker, to be improved with each dollar that we spent. And so therefore, having inherited a public debt of approximately $15 billion, one would think that we had income exceeding $20 billion. But hear this, Mr. Speaker. In 2007, our GDP was $9.1 billion, but our public debt was 6.5. And if at that point in time, Mr. Speaker, we say to the citizens of Barbados that we wanted to repay all the debt that the government owes, we would have been able to do that and had little money left over to be able to spend in the country, Mr. Speaker. But today, the gross domestic product or the income in Barbados is barely $9.5 billion, Mr. Speaker. So therefore, having confronted a situation where we, as the people chose in 2008 to go a different path, we handed an economy to the previous administration on any measure, Mr. Speaker, the best state ever handed over to any government ever in the history of this country. But we live in a democracy, sir. We live in a democracy. And so we respected the choice of the people. But we continue to agitate whilst in opposition, Mr. Speaker, that the path that the previous administration was on was the wrong one. Because the way they were spending money was wild. The wild, wild west. Bandits, Mr. Speaker.
Here for the language, honourable member.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So having assumed office a few months ago, we had some big decisions to make. Because over the course of that time, and I want Barbadians to appreciate something. This is September. Under normal circumstances, Mr. Speaker, certainly under Barbados or party government, every August, people will receive their tax refunds. Every August. Because when you file in April, a responsible government managing the affairs of the country ensures that you receive your tax refunds in August. I know a lot of people long for those days, but those days shall return. But in order for those days to return, Mr. Speaker, we must undergo the most comprehensive debt restructuring ever undertaken by any country, any part of the world right now. Because we, in the Barbados Labour Party, Mr. Speaker, we understand what it takes to govern. And there's some hard decisions that have to be taken over the course of the next few years, but we are not scared because there's hope for the improvement in the lives of ordinary Barbadians. And we have committed ourselves, Mr. Speaker, to ensuring that those decisions are taken in a timely manner. We have continued to engage the people of Barbados and all stakeholders, and we listen to people. We do. And where we can give it ease, we shall give it ease. But we are committed to staying the course, Mr. Speaker, because the road back to respectability, the road back to credibility, not just for the government of Barbados, but for the people of Barbados, wherever they go, whether in the region or internationally, they must feel proud to know that as Barbadians, people don't have to ask them wherever they go, what happened to Barbados? Because that, psychologically, Mr. Speaker, starts to get on you. And we are committed to restoring the faith and trust in the people of Barbados. Now, Mr. Speaker, this bill before the House, as I said earlier, the purpose of this bill is to facilitate the comprehensive debt restructuring program of the government and to ensure equitable treatment among all instrument holders by giving them the opportunity to indicate their acceptance or non-acceptance of the restructuring proposals published by the government. And as I indicated to you, Mr. Speaker, this offer went out on September 7th after a lot of work within the context of the Ministry of Finance, Economic Affairs and Investment. We have engaged broadly with respect to what needs to happen going forward. But, Mr. Speaker, we have reached the stage where, as with everything in life, we live in democracy. We have committed ourselves to being open, to being transparent. And so, therefore, whilst I can appreciate that things are moving at a pace to which persons seem to be unaccustomed, the reality, sir, this is what a government is supposed to do. A government is supposed to recognize where there's a problem, set about the task of fixing the problem through consultation. And even though, Mr. Speaker, we are asking Barbadians and those who hold government debt to make a sacrifice in this process, we are committed to ensuring, sir, as I said in my first speech here, that the delivery of public goods and services get back to the level to which Barbadians have grown accustomed, sir. Because if we continue, as the previous government did, sir, to borrow from you, and then borrow from the honourable member for St. George North, and everybody else in this chamber, and then by the time I get back around to you, you ask me about the money that we borrow from you, and then they skip you and go around again. Sir, that is not the way for a government to manage the affairs of the country. Where we are all over the place, sir, trying to find money to do this, to do that, when we have not taken the responsibility for fixing the problem. And whilst everybody says that government is a continuum, I want, through you, sir, to indicate to the public that this government will not continue the bad behavior, the flawed public policy that the people of this country would have seen over the last 10 years. And we are committed, sir, to fixing the problem. But in fixing the problem, sir, there's going to be some fallout. Because we didn't create the problem. Remember, as I said to you, sir, we handed to the previous administration at the beginning of 2008 the soundest economy in the history of Barbados, and this is where they brought us to. So in correcting the problem, yes, the public are looking to us right now for answers. We are providing those answers because as things evolve, sir, we are continuing to engage people. And so to the extent that people have questions, I encourage, through you, sir, to ask the public of Barbados to keep asking the questions of the government. Because that, sir, is what accountability looks like. And we have committed to that. So when we provide answers to people, sir, if they have more questions, let them ask the questions, sir, because we shall respond. Because we're going to take our time to make sure that when we come to the public, that it is concrete. So that people can take the word of any minister of government to the bank, sir. Because the faith and trust of your government must be sacrosanct. The people must be able to plan their affairs. And that is all we are setting about to do, sir. Now, during the presentation of the budget on July 11th, the Prime Minister would have set about what we call phase one. And by now, many Barbadians would have seen the presentations. And the reality is, sir, in the end of 2007, based on those metrics, our debt to GDP ratio was about 65%, 65, 66, thereabout. Which, sir, by any stretch of the imagination, is regarded as sustainable for the size economy that Barbados was at that time. Sustainable. So we did not have a debt problem because, as I say to you, sir, if, as a country, we had determined then that we were going to repay all of our public debt, then we had the income to do so. But nobody takes up all of seeks to repay all their debt all at once. But if we wanted to as a country, we could. But today, with over $15 billion in debt, an income of only $9.5 billion, we can't. And so our debt went from being about 65, 66% of GDP to over 150% today, sir. I ain't get there yet. I ain't get there yet. I ain't get there yet. These are serious numbers, sir. The third highest indebted country in the world. Now, imagine, 10 years ago, sir, nobody was looking at Barbados in this light because our credit rating, sir, was investment grade. Investment grade. Investment grade. And one of the concerns, sir, that we were trying to alert the public to was in opposition was with the repeated downgrades and the frequency, the increasing frequency of the downgrades under the last administration, we were trying to sensitize the public, sir, that something was wrong. Because under Barbados Labour Party government, the notion of being considered junk, sir, was not on the lexicon, in the memory of any Barbadian. Because the order in which we executed public finances, sir, the level of investor confidence, business confidence, and consumer confidence, sir, all spoke to investment grade. As with everything, there's always scope to improve, and that is what the Barbados Labour Party has always sought to do when it is given the opportunity to govern in this country, to improve the lives of ordinary Barbadians. But as we were highlighting, sir, that the credit quality through the downgrades, that was going to have consequences, sir, people felt as if we were being political, without recognizing, sir, that these are very serious, serious matters that you would expect any government to take seriously. So when the former Prime Minister and the former Minister of Finance will get in this very place and say that downgrades don't matter, sir, which in effect signals to Barbadians, because this is one of the peculiarities of being in Barbados. Barbadians actually listen to the leadership. We do. And there are some people who will listen to a Prime Minister as they should, sir, because when a Prime Minister comes before a country and makes a statement, every citizen, sir, every citizen must feel that the Prime Minister, in addressing them, or a Minister of Finance in addressing them, that what they're saying is actually true. They must feel so, sir, and they must know so. So when those two former members of this chamber would have indicated to Barbadians, sir, that downgrades don't matter, it gave a sense of false security, because the offices, sir, that they occupied demanded that when they communicated with the public, that the public automatically should trust them. Because that is what Barbados have been accustomed to, sir, up until now. Oh, sorry, up until then. So the damage, sir, the damage that those two members would have done, former members, sorry, to the trust that people ought to have in their government, in their leadership, has to be pointed out, sir, because Barbadians listen to their leaders. And so therefore, as we embark on this debt restructuring, now given that those two gentlemen, sir, if I can use that term, because I'm not sure I should use such a term to describe them, they, sir, contributed to Barbadians not understanding, because the juxtaposition was the opposition was being political. And so therefore, don't worry about them there, we got it covered. And so people continued to make investments in government securities because the leadership, the former leadership, can I use that term, sir? The former leadership? Okay, if you insist. The former leadership of that administration, sir, did not take these matters seriously. And because of that, sir, Barbadians did not have the opportunity, because had a former prime minister or a former minister of finance indicated to the people of Barbados that things were not on the right track, people would have had an opportunity, sir, to make a course correction. And that, sir, was not given to the people of Barbados. To compound it, sir, in 2015, when the minimum deposit rate was reduced from 2.5% to 0.5 at the time, there was a campaign for the purchase of savings bonds. At that time, sir, no person in this country none of the persons, sorry, who would have purchased those savings bonds, they were not informed that at that time that the central bank was printing $50 million a month, sir, to finance government. As I've indicated earlier, sir, in other jurisdictions, somebody would have been up in, would have been otherwise housed than in this chamber, sir.
Not in a hotel, you mean, sir?
Sorry?
Not in a hotel, do you mean, sir?
Not at a hotel. Not at a hotel. Otherwise housed. I like that. But seriously, sir, the people were misled. And so throughout this exercise, as a responsible government, we have determined that none of the persons who bought savings bonds in 2015 or 2016, when they were being marketed with the Glitzy campaign, sir, none of those persons will be impacted by this debt restructuring. Because those persons, sir, having been encouraged to purchase those savings bonds, as a responsible government, now we could not just go and throw them under the bus. So I know there are many persons out there today who are hearing about this debt restructuring and are fearful. But I say to you that if you have purchased any government of Barbados savings bonds, that this comprehensive debt restructuring does not apply to you. And so those persons can feel rest assured that when the time comes, the government of Barbados shall honor in full the terms and conditions of those government savings bonds that those individuals bought in 2015 and 2016. I want to make that abundantly clear to you, sir. This bill before the House, as I mentioned earlier, sir, speaks to Treasury bills, Treasury notes, and debentures. So if you're holding government of Barbados savings bonds, it does not affect you, sir. Absolutely clear. So I hope for those who are operating in the social media space and in other spaces across this country, that you appreciate that this government that we have taken the responsibility for ensuring that those persons have been ring-fenced and they will not be affected by this comprehensive debt restructuring. Now, Mr. Speaker, the hard fact of the matter of this situation is that when the Prime Minister announced on June 1st that we shall suspend the external debt payment, she also indicated that Barbados will approach the International Monetary Fund to engage for their support in helping us to move forward. And the hard fact, as I said, even with the measures taken in the budget of June 11th, sir, at more than 150% of debt to GDP, even with those measures, if we did nothing else, sir, we will not even come close to anything near 60% of debt to GDP on its own. Even with the impending adjustments within government, the fiscal reforms that we're going to undertake, plus what we did, sir, with the mini budget, if we do those together, we still will not reach anything close to 60% of GDP that we, as a people, know about. And so therefore, sir, the hard fact of the matter is that the government, as we have inherited from the previous administration, we simply do not have all the resources to pay all of the debt in full and on time. There was a headline, I think a few days ago, in the local newspaper saying that we were broke. And the truth, in fact, sir, at over 150% debt to GDP, you can't manage that and sustain that, sir. You can't. And what Barbadians also need to recognize was up until last night, sir, I was having a chat on WhatsApp with one of my constituents. Because land tax bills just went out, as you're aware, sir. And the constituent asked whether the land tax bill can be offset against the income tax arrears that the Barbados Revenue Authority owes them since 2014. And obviously in my position, I'm aware as to why that is. But I want to say to Barbadians that your lack of refund or timely refunds for income tax, reverse tax credits, VAT, corporation tax, whatever it is, sir, should indicate to you that something has gone so horribly wrong with the way government was operating. Because the only time before that you would have had any issue at all with any of those things, sir, was whether there was a dispute between you and the Revenue Authority with respect to what was assessed to be owed. And so therefore, as in any tax administration, there are always questions from time to time between the tax authorities and the persons who are the taxpayers with respect to what is owed. But it can never be the case that there's a dispute with everybody in the country about what tax they owed and the tax authorities, sir. Never. So whilst persons look to the BRA really to pay them, and I really do sympathize, because by rights you've paid your taxes, and so therefore if there's an assessment that you've paid too much, your government ought to refund you on time and in full, sir. As the Barbados Labour Party has had a rich history of doing, because we so manage the affairs of the country that citizens knew that even if they overpaid taxes, that they will get back those taxes in full and on time. And so there, wherever you go, sir, even in your constitution across the length and breadth of this country, you can't go anywhere in Barbados and the government owes somebody something. It is serious, sir. And this comprehensive debt restructuring, sir, is absolutely required because to bring back some order, not just to the public finances, but certainly to the way that government provides goods and services, such that when any Minister of Finance, any Prime Minister, any member of this government says that we are going to do something, and we have set about the plans of allocating the resources to do whatever that something is, sir, that the people involved can count on that activity and not have to worry about whether or not the money will be available. Because that is how a government behaves, sir. And the reality, sir, is what we are asking creditors to do is to make a choice between making the sacrifices as contained within the comprehensive debt restructuring. And I want to make it abundantly clear, sir. Persons who currently hold securities issued by the government of Barbados, if we were to continue as the previous government did, it is very likely that you will not get back the very investment that you put in. That is the harsh reality. And so therefore the choice is clear. The terms that we are offering allows you, the holder of the security, to get back your principal or your investment over the period of time in a way that allows the government to pay you easier, rather than, sir, in the current system where if you purchase any government security right now, the only thing you get right now will be the interest. But your principal, the money that you put in, you get at the end. And what we have offered on the table, sir, within the confines of this debt restructuring, is a mechanism that allows persons not just to get interest, but to also get back principal payments over the life of the bond. And I'm going to elaborate a little more on that a little later, but I want to make it clear that the choice here is you accept these, what is on offer, and you are assured to get back your principal, or we don't do anything and we just hope that you get back something. Now, I would not want to be part of any government, sir, that will see that there's a problem that certainly is affecting thousands of Barbadians and not seek to do something about it. Because the people that sent us here would be utterly disappointed in us if we saw that there was a problem that we could do something about and we did not. So we are going to hear all kinds of things, sir, about what should have been done and how we should have spoken to this body and we shouldn't have talked to this body this way and how they don't like how we engage in people and all these things we can hear now, sir, simply because we are seeking to bring a level of confidence back to the people of this country. Build back trust with the people of this country with respect to their government, sir. So we can hear all kinds of things. People can have questions about all kinds of things. But ask the question, sir, and we shall answer. Because what we are doing here, sir, is simply to make sure that when Barbadians when they work hard and get their money and they decide that at some point in the future they want to invest in a bond that the government of Barbados issues, they must do so because they trust, sir, that their leadership will be looking out for their interests and that of their family. And so, sir, without this debt restructuring, the simple matter is there will be no IMF program in terms of support. And the reality is, sir, is that we have reached staff level agreement with the IMF 2 weeks ago. And that, sir, is a signal to the entire investor community that Barbados has gone back to a path that the IMF can say to every single investor across the globe that the plan that Barbados is putting in place to correct this problem, they are prepared to support. And because they are prepared to support it, sir, that signal goes to multilaterals who wants the board approves officially the program, we would then start to get other support from the official sector that we are not getting right now, sir. As we set about to meet the targets under our program, sir, supported by the International Monetary Fund, we know that investor confidence and business confidence, sir, that those two critical components, sir, critical components for economic growth will start to increase because the signal will be there for all and sundry, sir, that the government of Barbados and that the country of Barbados, sir, is not just open for business, but on the right track, which the International Monetary Fund will be able to communicate to the world. With the best will in the world, sir, between myself, the Prime Minister, and every member of this Honourable Chamber, the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central, we will have to spend an inordinate amount of time trying to convince everybody that we do business with that our program is working. And so therefore, with the support of the International Monetary Fund, and with them saying that we have reached our target, sir, they are seen as an objective arbiter in the process, so that when they say that Barbados have met its targets, everybody will accept that we have met our targets. And so therefore, we don't have to spend time convincing other people that we have met our targets, so that every member of this chamber can go about focusing on the very things that we need to focus on to get the government moving and to get consumer confidence rebuilt, delivering the public services that government's supposed to focus, rather than trying to be convincing people that we're on the right track. And so therefore, the comprehensive debt restructuring, sir, is important in that puzzle. In that puzzle. And the reality, sir, is that the public sector finances needs to come back to a level of respectability. And in a real sense, it goes to restoring a level of public order. A level of public order, because holders of debt, sir, whilst we are asking them in the inner years, the early years, to accept lower interest payments than what they were initially issued, that sacrifice will be repaid later with respect to making sure that you actually get back the principal. So I know there are a lot of persons in the public right now who are balking at the fact that the interest rates will come down. But the point has to be made through you, sir, that had we continued on the path of the previous administration, it wouldn't be interest rates that we're talking about, sir. It would not be interest rates and interest income that we're talking about, sir. We'll be talking about the very investment, the very nature, the very livelihood of every Barbadian. Because if a government was to ever have to introduce haircuts on principles, sir, haircuts on principles, that would devastate every single household in this country. Every household, sir. And a responsible government would not allow such a thing to happen. And so therefore, the sacrifice that we're asking persons to make in the early years with respect to interest payments, on interest payments. And I want people to appreciate that that expense, because whilst the public debt was about $15 billion, our total income is about 9.5, as I mentioned earlier, sir. The cost of servicing that debt out of revenue that is just short of $3 billion a year tax revenue, sir, is unsustainable. And so what persons are experiencing in Barbados now is because of an acute inability, sir, for any government, but certainly caused by the previous administration, to allocate the resources to where they should go. To where they should go. And so this exercise today, sir, is to bring some order to how we work out the comprehensive debt restructuring. And it is important that people appreciate that we certainly did not come here to continue what was done by the previous administration. I think on May 24th, the people made it abundantly clear, sir, that they want to go in a different direction. Going in a different direction, sir, means that along that course correction, sir, there has to be sacrifice, because we are changing what happened. And in correcting what happened, sir, it means that there must be sacrifice and the burden must be shared as fairly as possible across everybody. And so it would not be possible, sir, to bring back a level of order to the to public finance if we did not undergo this comprehensive debt restructuring. So I want to speak very quickly, sir, on the right of instrument holders to vote on the restructuring proposals, and I'm going to go through this section relatively quickly. But, sir, it says, subject to subsection 5, the minister shall cause a copy of the restructuring proposals together with a voting form to be transmitted by hand or by post to every instrument holder, including state-owned enterprise, before the 5th of October, 2018. And, sir, I can report that that has already been done. 2, an instrument holder may indicate acceptance or non-acceptance of the restructuring proposals by submitting the voting form to the minister in such manner as indicated in the restructuring proposals on or before the 5th of October, 2018. 3, the votes referred to in subsection 2 shall be weighted to reflect the outstanding principal amount of all specified debt instruments owned by the instrument holder submitting the vote. 4, for the purpose of voting under subsection 3, all instrument holders shall constitute a single class of creditor. And 5, where specified debt instruments are held by the government or by the Central Bank of Barbados, those instruments shall not be regarded as outstanding, as they shall not be counted in the voting process prescribed in this section. Now, the key thing, sir, is that as we seek to execute this comprehensive debt restructuring, it's important that as we move forward, that to ensure that people are treated equally. Once we have attained the appropriate percentages by way of votes, which I'll get to in the next section, sir, those who agree, and it's a majority, sir, as I will get to the next section, will make it binding for all other persons. So, acceptance of restructuring proposals by instrument holders. The restructuring proposal shall be deemed to be accepted, sir, where A, instrument holders holding more than 50% of the aggregate outstanding principal amount of all specified debt instruments submitting voting forms under section 4.2 above. And B, where instrument holders holding more than 75% of the aggregate outstanding principal amount of all specified debt instruments for which voting forms under paragraph A have been received, vote to approve the proposals. Now, sir, what is important to appreciate here is that in this process, as you are aware, in 2007, sir, again, this all goes to order, because we've got to understand there's certain principles by which you go through this process. At the end of 2007, sir, the Central Bank of Barbados did not have any treasury bills at all owned by the government of Barbados. On its books. When we inherited the government a few months ago, sir, the Central Bank of Barbados had about $2 billion worth of Treasury bills on its books. And so as we sought to execute this, we felt it was important that we bring an approach, sir, that makes it fair, as fair as possible for the creditors to be able to determine the process through which they will accept the offer. And I want to make the point, sir, that if we were to include what the central bank is holding in debt in this process, sir, it would potentially make it unfair with respect to the voting process. And so therefore we have sought to exclude the central banks, the debt that the central bank is holding, from the proportion, sir, of total debt that is on offer, to make sure that we give all the other creditors the first opportunity, sir, to review those proposals without feeling as if somehow or the other the government's offer is mandatory. Now, sir, the reality is this is a sovereign debt restructuring. We have consulted widely on this matter. We have sought to engage people and to sensitize them as to how and why this is important that we do this. Because as I said at the very outset, sir, this is a significant part of the puzzle which allows us, sir, to make sure that the fixed exchange rate remains in place. Because when, sir, we were in opposition, and we had indicated to the country, and certainly the IMF in their Article 4 report, sir, indicated that the central bank, in the purchase of those treasury bills, that their monetary policy was not consistent, sir, was not consistent with maintaining the fixed exchange rate. And I want Barbadians to understand that what the central bank was previously undertaking with respect to financing government was a clear threat, sir, to our ability to maintain the fixed exchange rate. And so therefore, in this process, sir, we felt it was important that the central bank had to be excluded from the process because, in a sense, having accelerated and created the problem, sir, and I'll get to that shortly, that it would not be fair to include that debt in the voting process. And so therefore, of the remaining debt, sir, what we are saying here in this provision is that once persons return the offer and the size of the debt that each person or entity, sir, and those who return, we will look to see how much of that remaining debt in total, how much that person have responded. And so long as, sir, we meet that 50% threshold where 50% of that outstanding debt persons have responded, we shall then go and look and see, sir, to verify whether or not 75% of those who have responded have met the 50% threshold, what they have determined with respect to determining whether or not that shall constitute a binding agreement for the remainder. And I think that that's important because we need to move forward, sir. We need to move forward with a sense of clarity with respect to how the government of Barbados is going to manage its affairs to make sure that as we start to move back, sir, because once we're able to restructure our debt and we're able, sir, to repay our debts on time, but more importantly, sir, repay the arrears. The arrears, sir. That our credit worthiness, sir, will start to improve over the course of this adjustment period. Because, sir, when we inherited the government, sir, our credit rating was CCC-. A lot of persons were asking me, well, how much lower can you go, sir? And this comprehensive debt restructuring, sir, and the way that we're going to manage the workout, the cash flow requirements, the financing for government, sir, and the provision of public services, sir, would allow Barbados to start to get back to investment grade as soon as we would like to, sir. But instead of Barbadians hearing about downgrades from Moody's and Standard & Poor's and Fitch and whoever else, sir, Carrie Chris, and all of those agencies, over the course of this period, once we stick to this program, sir, including the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Plan, sir, that so long as Barbadians make that sacrifice that is being asked of them today, that the actions of their government, sir, will start to lead to an improvement in the credit quality of this country. Sir, this is not going to be an easy undertaking. I think we have said so, sir. I don't know how many times. There's a sense in the country that things have normalized. The truth is, sir, they have not. We have to improve in every aspect of what we do, not just in government, but across the length and breadth of Barbados. This will not be an easy exercise. And the reason that the people, through you, sir, the reason that the people of this country have been saying to us, slow down, slow down, slow down, sir. And the Prime Minister would always say the issue for Barbados is time. Because had we continued what the previous government did, sir, we would not have any foreign reserves today. Because had we not suspended our external debt payments, sir, in June, we would not have the capacity, sir, to adequately defend against the peg. And the truth is, sir, there's still a lot of work to go. And I want Barbadians to appreciate that what we are doing here, because we are unanimous in one thing in Barbados, sir, and is that we want to maintain the fixed exchange rate. And in order to maintain the fixed exchange rate, the government must be disciplined in its approach, sir. But what we have to do now, sir, what we have to do is not rest on our laurels, but to make sure that we get back to a stage where the ordinary citizen, the business person, the investor does not have to worry about how government is managing its affairs, such that they can go about their business, sir, their business, whatever it is, with true confidence. Because everybody in Barbados, sir, started to get concerned. And we want to remove that uncertainty and provide a platform, sir, where the conduct, not just of the public finances, but the way that we do business within government, the way that we do business in the country, sir, has to change. And in that change, sir, Barbadians, we will continue to engage, but we can no longer, sir, afford to maintain the existing system as it is. We have to make strategic changes, and in making those strategic changes, sir, Barbadians will not only just see an improvement in the delivery, but the cost of the government for delivering the said services, sir, should reduce. And those are the kinds of efficiencies, sir, that we must now come to be known for in the 21st century. Because, as we will discuss certainly when we get to the Barbados Economic Recovery and Transformation Program, sir, there are elements in there, sir, that require us as a country, sir, to lift our standards so that anything that is done in New York or London or Hong Kong, that we must be able to do better. And we must aim to do better. Because in this 21st century, sir, we must simply be excellent at everything that we do. And I think that's an important element, sir, to make note of. And so, with respect to the voting, we certainly expect then that once the offers come in, and we have reached the 50% of the outstanding debt total from there, and we look and see whether or not of that 75% have agreed. Once that is in place, sir, then this particular bill will then bind others to come into the process. The reality, sir, is at this particular juncture, the government of Barbados is very conscious that in order to deliver the kind of economic growth that we are accustomed to when the Barbados Labour Party is in power, that we need a financial system, sir, that can, in truth and in fact, deliver that growth. We're very conscious of that. And so therefore, the management of how we exercise not just public finances, but how we manage our debt going forward is going to be a critical component of that. And we certainly do not want at any juncture that any financial institution is having to offer advice either to their clients, whether external, ordinary Barbadians, that the government of Barbados is not a safe bet. And we know, sir, that in order to make sure that that advice goes in our favor, that we must maintain a level of partnership within the confines of the financial system. I want to assure Barbadians we have done all the appropriate stress testing. And stress testing just means, sir, that we have looked at the assets and the liabilities of every major financial institution, and in crafting these debt proposals, that we have looked at the capital base, we've looked at the operations, and we have determined that these are the best proposals that does not in any way, sir, compromise the solvency of any financial institution. Sir, this is important because when Barbadians work hard and get their monies when the month come, and they deposit and they put those monies in any financial institution, they must know, sir, that their monies are safe. And once we operate in a world of risk, sir, the government of Barbados, and certainly this government, will not do anything, sir, that jeopardizes the stability of the financial system. And I want to repeat it, sir. We have done the stress testing on all the major financial institutions, and we are satisfied, sir, that each of those financial institutions, that as the government itself moves forward to make sure that we modernize the way that we do business, that we're going to encourage the entire financial system, sir, to modernize the way that they also do business, such that the ordinary citizen, as we've committed in our manifesto, to make it easy for the ordinary citizen to do business, whatever that business is, whether with government or with the private sector. We are going to lead that, sir, because we believe that it's important that as we start to pay back, in fact, the principal payments earlier than would be expected under a normal debt situation, that persons will have the opportunity, sir, to determine where they want to put that money. And that, sir, is where we see the financial system evolving, sir, to make sure that opportunities for Barbadians, opportunities for investment, of which there are many, which will be rolled out, sir, that Barbadians will have choices with which to, where to put their monies. Sir, we have to, in a real sense, sir, we have in this debt restructuring process, we have, in a sense, redefined what in finance might be regarded as being risk-free. There's a concept, or a model, sorry, in finance called the capital asset pricing model, sir. And in that model, the treasury bill rates in any country, sir, are usually deemed to be the risk-free rate within that jurisdiction. And it is important that for the many analysts, and certainly as persons now are considering the offer, that they look at the offer that's on the table for all the institutions very, 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 very carefully to make sure that as they are in the process of revaluing their securities, that they don't confuse, sir, what we are doing on the interest rate side with respect to the fact that they will actually be redeemed their principal in full. And so as we are moving from a traditional approach of issuing securities, where you will only receive the investment at the end, to a point now where we are amortizing the securities over the life of the said security, sir, that the process of valuation now has to be undertaken very differently from what we are accustomed to in the past. And I think it's important to stress that because, like most situations, sir, we are accustomed to doing things a certain way. And so therefore, for all the persons who do CFA, all the actuaries and everybody who is doing the current valuations, is important, I believe, sir, it is important for them now to carefully look at the cash flows that they will get from these restructured bonds and not confuse the fact that we are asking persons to take a sacrifice on the interest in order to ensure that the public understands, sir, understands that in this manner, the principal will be returned in full. And this is not a trade confirmers situation. It is not a CLICO situation, sir, that the government of Barbados is working to make sure, as we have done, to ensure that the principal that persons have put up in these securities, that they get them back in full. The discussion, sir, is how much interest you will get over the course of these restructured bonds. And so it is important, sir, that the many persons, not just in the financial, that work in the insurance companies and the banks and credit unions, but certainly the various companies who, under IFRS 9, have to do the evaluations. It just means, sir, that instead of the traditional way of calculating the cash flows, they have to do a little more work. But Excel is decent at doing that. And again, if persons have any issues, you can contact the Ministry of Finance. But seriously, sir, it is a change in the way that we are valuing securities now. And it is important, sorry? Yeah, they can come to my tax clinic. But seriously, we have to change the way that we're doing this. And it's important, too, to recognize that as we are making that change, sir, that if there are persons who encounter financial difficulties for whatever reason, that because the new bonds are being issued in what we call strips, sir, and we had a very interesting conversation yesterday about the strips, and I should probably I should probably do the same thing. But basically, sir, what this allows for people to do is that rather than waiting until the end to get the entire bond repaid, sir, over the life of the specific security that they will be swapped into, they will have the opportunity, sir, to get a piece of that principal in what we call strips over the period of time. A piece. And what you do with that money, sir, you can either use it to finance your current lifestyle, or you can reinvest it in something as you move forward. But the reality, sir, is it allows for greater cash flow once we get through this adjustment period, sir, for greater cash flow, because you're getting interest and principal together, and whilst in the early years the interest is lower, and it's stepping up, sir, until the end of the bond, or the security, let me use that term, you are getting principal payments, which helps you, sir, to get through if there are any difficulties that pensioners or anybody may face. And this is the truth, sir. Under the current system, one would have to cash out the whole thing or find somebody to exchange in order to access those monies. But this gives an opportunity now for whether you're pensioners or ordinary individuals who may find themselves in some difficulty to be able to access a part of your investment in a way that you never did before. And so I think it's important that as we move forward, sir, that people start to appreciate that whilst we are ensuring that you get back your principal payments in full, but you're getting it in what we call strips, a piece at a time, sir, that this actually helps you rather than waiting and hoping that you get back your money. And sir, I just want to make a very important point because I think we have to recognize that this process was very, very difficult. We also recognize, sir, that the cost of living would have increased by almost 50% in the last 10 years. And for a number of persons, sir, obviously no salary increase, no anything at all. We are very conscious of that. And so, the truth is, if you were to wait until the end to get back your money, sir, the $100,000, sir, that you might have invested, or in
I don't have that kind of money, Honourable Member. Never had it, but never have.
Sorry, when I say you, sir, I'm talking to the population through you, sir.
Understood, Honourable Member.
But basically, sir, the time value of money, because inflation, sir, increased so significantly under the last administration, sir, and because people's incomes have stagnated in a way that we have never experienced in our lifetimes as Barbadians. Because you're now going to be getting back your principal payment, sir, in pieces, in strips, as we call it, it actually means even though we are asking you to make a sacrifice on the interest component, the time value of money means, sir, that the $100,000, sir, that you would have invested and you would have asked, that you would expect to get back in 15 years or 20 years or 30 years. The truth is, sir, that by the time you get back the money, what it could actually buy would have been a lot less. So because we're giving you a piece of the money going forward, it actually means, sir, that the value of the money that you are getting is increasing. I know for a lot of persons that may seem, well, you may not understand, but the reality is that once you have money now, it's better to have money now than later. And so therefore, we have taken that into consideration, sir. So as we design this debt restructuring, we have said, well, look, cost of living has gone up by almost 50% in the last 10 years. A lot of persons have not seen an increase in whether it's pensions or salaries and the like, sir. And so therefore, sir, we have sought to craft this debt restructuring proposal. Whilst you're sacrificing on the interest side, we've ensured that there's no haircut, sir, on your principal. But at the same time, sir, we are conscious that because the time value of money diminishes over time, that we ensured, sir, that persons could actually live. They have greater cash flow. And so therefore, what they do with that money to reinvest it, sir, is very, very, very important. And Barbadians need to be aware, sir, that your government is thinking about your well-being and that of your family. And that as we seek to bring about a level of confidence back to the management of the public finances, that we are doing so, sir, in a way that is consistent with sound economic policy. Now, sir, we have reached here because there was a prevailing assumption that you can print as much money as you want in domestic currency, and it wouldn't matter because it's government, it's local debt, sorry. A very, 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 very flawed assumption. This assumption, sir, was peddled, if I can use that term, was peddled, sir, by someone who should know better. Who should know better? Because, sir, I want to remind this chamber of something that I experienced as a young economist. I joined the central bank, sir, in September of 2000. And at that time, Alan Greenspan was the chair of the Federal Reserve in the United States. And Alan Greenspan was regarded as a colossus of central bank economists, or governors, I should say. When Greenspan spoke, markets moved, sir. And as a young economist, hearing about Greenspan, and we know Greenspan would have served under Ronald Reagan, George Bush, Bill Clinton. A colossus, sir. And there are some among us, sir, who dreamt of that kind of respect, if you want to use that term, that kind of fame, if you like, that kind of effectiveness. And so in the last few years, sir, at our very institution here, we had something similar, but the opposite effect. Because whilst people were dreaming of being a colossus, sir, the people of Barbados and this economy, sir, was languishing. The people were languishing, the economy was languishing, sir. Because of completely flawed, sir, advice that was then offered to the previous person responsible for finance. And sir, whilst it pains me as a central banker to have to say this in this chamber, the reality, sir, is that when one puts yourself ahead of the institution, ahead of the overall objectives of the country, because the mandate, sir, of the central bank is clear. Clear, clear, clear. Clear. But if you feel or you dream that you are that which you are not, sir, Barbados is now experiencing the results of that. Now, sir, I don't want to be harsh, but I recall when I was at university, my siblings used to watch this cartoon called Pinky and the Brain. And as two laboratory rats trying to conquer the world, they dreamt of what they were not, sir. And every day, every night, they try to take over the world and fail, sir. And so Barbados has reached this point, sir, and I want Barbados to be absolutely clear as to how we got here. How we got here, sir. How we got here. We have had, sir, everybody says that the central bank governor is a creature of the Minister of Finance. And sir, where we are today, sir, I can't say the institution. I can't say the institution. But people dreamt of that which they were not, sir. And it is that unfortunate sense of self is why we are here. Because in a small open economy, sir, as we all know at the University of West Indies, and there are many Barbadians and certainly pensioners today who would recall the late Wendell McLean on the various calling programs, sir, talking about the discipline that is required not just from government, but from central banks, sir, with respect to maintaining the fixed exchange rate. And so when someone can conceive that they were going to finance government operations, thinking that they were outsmarting, sir, because that's exactly what Pinky and the Brain thought they were doing every night as they embarked to take over the world. And failed, sir. That those two gentlemen are the reason why we are here having this discussion, sir. But, sir, it is important for Barbadians to understand that as we speak right now, sir, that the very person who was at the center, sir, the center of lending to government, who did not tell the people of Barbados, sir, that they were printing $50 million a month to finance government, sir, that they now, sir, they are now being paid by external creditors, sir, to try to work against the interests of ordinary Barbadians. So you create a problem. What all about Barbados saying that you should do this and send home this amount of people and all kinds of things? And no, sir. No, sir. You're working with external creditors to try to derail the government from correcting this very serious problem. Now, let me say this, sir, because it's important that context is provided. You have a domestic creditor committee, you have an external creditor committee. Those who hold domestic debt, those who hold external debt. And people are free, as we live in a democracy, to hire whoever they want to advise them. That is their right. So I want to make that clear. But what I cannot understand, sir, what I cannot understand is how does a Barbadian create a problem and then start working for the people, or with other people, sorry, to try to stop the problem from getting fixed? How? How?
Why?
How? Now, sir, there are persons who hold our foreign currency bonds who were with us from the time we were investment grade. And I, on behalf of the government, I thank those bondholders, sir, who have kept faith with the government of Barbados through all 20-something downgrades, sir, who still kept faith with the government of Barbados. But, sir, there are those who came in late. You know, the Phantom comic strip always used to have a little blurb at the top for those who came in late. So even though as we seek to treat creditors equally, there are those who came in late. So equity, and whilst we're focusing here on domestic this, I just want to make this point. Equity is not necessarily equates to the same thing or the same result for those who were in early and those who came in late. And so as we seek to work out the external side, sir, it is being complicated in a sense because, as I said, the person at the center of creating this mess is now being paid by external creditors. to stop the government of Barbados from reaching an agreement on these matters. All kinds of stuff being circulated in the press about no communication, no meetings, all kinds of stuff. Nothing could be further from the truth, sir. Nothing could be further from the truth. And the reality, sir, is because one feels or has an inflated, sir, sense of self, and that your advice is not being taken, sir, because the people of Barbados have chosen a different path, sir, and we have communicated every step of the way with the people of Barbados, sir, and whilst I accept that not everybody necessarily understands at the same pace, we shall continue to communicate with the people of Barbados. We shall continue to bring the people of Barbados along with us, sir, and we will not go the route of sending home no 4,000 people, because that is not the nature of the problem, sir. When you spend so much time thinking of yourself and not about the people, sir, that is the kind of policy advice that a previous Minister of Finance would accept, but not in this government, sir. We walk the length and breadth of this country on the road to listen to the people, the cries. And we have brought that same purpose to this government. And in this exercise with respect to the debt restructuring, sir, as I indicated to you, we have thought this thing through. And whilst there will be a sacrifice with respect to people on interest, we are committed to ensuring that the plan as laid out ensures that people do not experience what they experience with trade confirmers or with CLICO, sir. We are not going to take people for a ride. This comprehensive debt restructuring is critical to ensuring that Barbados gets back on a path of economic growth and sustainability, so that what persons have grown accustomed to in the past, not just that we don't want to go back to what was there, no, sir. We want to improve. And this is absolutely critical in order to be able to do that. Absolutely critical, sir. And so, we have been very delicate with respect to how we go about crafting these proposals, sir. Crafting these proposals. Because we have undertaken that the people of this country, sir, must not suffer unnecessarily. Sir, the road ahead, sir, is going to be very, 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 very tough. And an important goal of this particular bill is to ensure that a small minority of creditors do not seek to take advantage of the sense of responsibility that the country, that it has to the country and to citizens as a whole. And so, the fairness or the equity with which we want to achieve is to make sure that how we treat one set is how we treat everybody for the most part. And that is important for us because whilst we have determined, sir, and I want to repeat it again, that those Barbadians who hold government of Barbados savings bonds, that you will not be affected by this debt restructuring. And I think it is critical that people stop scaremongering, speaking mistruths. I don't want to say the other word, sir. That would be unparliamentary. But, sir, we accept that there may be a level of anxiety as we move forward. We accept that because we are changing the way that we do business with the people. But what people must recognize that in changing the way that we do business with them, that they will look and see that what we are doing makes sense for them, such that that anxiety dissipates over time. Because the way you do business here is just as important as what you do. And we want to improve in every element in the way that we do business in this country, and this is an important juncture to start. Because many Barbadians would have purchased or invested, in government securities in good faith. Because in the past, if you had bought a bond 20 years ago, you would expect that your government certainly was going to be responsible. And certainly when they bought the bonds in 2000, 2005, we were investment grade. There wasn't no big set of hullabaloo about downgrades and all kind of stuff. So persons under Barbados, the party bought bonds in good faith, sir, because the economy was being managed in the way that they expected it to be managed, sir. And nowhere was it contemplated when we were last in office, given the track record that not just the Barbados, their party then, but all previous governments would have managed the affairs of the country. Nobody ever, certainly not me, sir, and my business is forecasting. I do forecasting. And the truth is, I didn't see this coming, in the sense that nobody in 2008, when the government changed, would have contemplated that there was going to be such a sea change in the way that government managed its affairs, that in 10 years we'd be doing a debt restructuring. But once we were in opposition and seeing these signs, we were trying to send signals to people that this was on the cards. But people said, well, them is the BLP, so them political, they gotta say these things. And that's unfortunate, sir. That's unfortunate. Because had people paid some attention to the signs from us, they'd recognize that they needed to make a change. And sir, on that point, I want to give a personal reflection. And perhaps it's an important one that as we seek to invest in young people now, it's important that certainly parents take or listen to the advice of young people. But take it for what it is, sir. In 2012, and I remember as if it was yesterday, 2012, we had some, my wife and I, we had some bonds. And at that point in time, I was the president of the Economic Society. We talking about what was happening at the time and stuff. Now, the bonds matured. My wife came home one evening and said, Ryan, I'm going to cash these bonds. Normally, we will roll over, sir. This is 2012. And having just participated in something on brass tacks or some program, I said, well, okay. Because the signals, sir, the signals were there from then. I recall giving that story on more than one occasion. I don't know whether people listened to me. I don't know whether people thought that I was bashing the government or whatever. But the truth is, sir, when it comes to making financial decisions, people must have access to all the information that they need. And if you still want to go ahead and put in your money, then accept the risk. But, sir, all this Barbados Labour Party is seeking to do is to recreate the very economic fundamentals, as I said, sir, that when persons would have invested very freely and in very much good faith during our last administration, that there would have been a real expectation that the government of Barbados would have been able to repay those bonds in full and on time. And let me say, sir, that the people of this country now have to listen to the young people. We have a lot of people around the place who are trained in finance and economics and all kinds of new exciting areas that didn't necessarily exist a few years ago. And whilst I accept that the market for investment is shallow, we have to pay attention to the signs and to listen to advice. Now, sir, when the last government shifted from running current account surpluses, as we would call them, in the bank, and I remember one day we were talking about the economy overheating. I mean, we would love some heat now. But sir, the reality is this. When a government issues bonds, securities, whatever the case is, there's normally a provision where there's a sinking fund so that you set aside a piece of change periodically to make sure that you're able to repay in full. Now, once the government changed, the previous administration changed trajectory, it meant that sinking funds were no longer being capitalized in the way that it should. Because every time you issue a new piece of debt, it was a requirement to make sure that you do that, to cover that. But if you're not running the surpluses, sir, as we did in the past, then when you take on a new investment, you can't finance it. Because you've got to cover your existing debt plus whatever you have before. But, sir, the previous administration and certainly the previous dispensation at the central bank had a completely different view than all the other governments that was in place before. And Barbadians now have to recognize that before they make a choice as to who's to come here, they have to make sure that they understand how to manage the public affairs of this country. Sir, the order and the discipline that is now required of us and every single Barbadian to make sure not just the debt restructuring is executed successfully, but as we reform everything that we currently do in Barbados, sir, everything, that we are clearly focused on why, sir, why we are doing this. Because the maintenance of the fixed exchange rate is important to the stability of this country. We are bringing back a level of order to the public finances through this comprehensive debt restructuring that allows for that stability of the exchange rate to remain in place, sir. The government is going to undertake fiscal reform, sir, in support of maintaining that fixed exchange rate, sir. As we go about reforming not just government, but the private sector to make sure that business and investor confidence returns to the economy, sir, that too will ensure that as we start to earn more and more foreign exchange, the level of reserves at the central bank should return to the levels that we are accustomed to. Because when we left office in 2007, sir, there were in excess of 20 weeks of foreign reserves at the central bank, sir. When we came to office, it was 5.5, sir. And had we not suspended debt payments in June, sir, as I said, it was 5.5 when we came to office. We would have been down to about 2 weeks, sir, and scrambling. And Barbados is not a country, sir, that is known for scrambling. So we are seeking to rebuild the reserve buffer by doing the very things, sir, that whether you're an individual investor or an institutional investor, that the conditions for investment, sir, that when people look at Barbados, they can feel confident that the place is being well managed and that they can put their money in Barbados and get a return on that investment. Now, sir, we have been, I suppose in recent times, as has been said, as the third highest indebted country in the world after Greece and Japan. Now, Japan obviously has a level of reserves that allow them to do that. Japan is one of the largest economies in the world. And so therefore, they can afford that level of debt given their GDP because of the competitive nature in terms of their exports. Because for most of us in this country, we drive some kind of vehicle that comes from Japan. And so therefore, Japan has a manufacturing base, sir, that allows it to be able to afford through the exports that level of debt. Greece, sir, has the European Union to back it as it is part of a currency union within the Eurozone, sorry. And so therefore, those two countries, at 1 and 2, have the capacity or at least have somebody to come and rescue them. Barbados does not have anybody, sir, to come to our rescue. And so therefore, this comprehensive debt restructuring is absolutely required, sir, absolutely required to make sure that we start to rescue ourselves, because you know what my grandmother always used to say, sir, that God has helped those who help themselves. And we, sir, have to help ourselves to give a clear signal to the rest of the world who want to see Barbados succeed, sir. People want to see Barbados succeed, but we must take it within ourselves, sir, to dig deep. Hold strength, sir, during this adjustment period, such that when we are able to announce, or when the International Monetary Fund is able to announce that we are meeting our targets on a quarterly basis, sir, that the help, sir, that people have pledged will come, because people want to see that you do something, sir, to help your own situation. And this government is intent on making sure that that happens. Now, sir, I want to say that where the subsection 5.2 says where the voting threshold specified in paragraphs A and B of subsection 1 are obtained, the restructuring proposal shall be deemed to be accepted, whether or not some instrument holders voted against the restructuring proposals or declined to exercise their right to vote. 3, where the restructuring proposals are accepted, the comprehensive debt restructuring shall take effect in accordance with the restructuring proposals on or before the 31st day of October 2018. B, exchange instruments shall be issued to all instrument holders in accordance with the restructuring proposals. And C, all specified debt instruments received in the exchange shall be deemed discharged and cancelled. Now, sir, there's some subsequent legislation that will come that will give validity to the way that we are going to exercise and execute this debt restructuring. But we felt, sir, that it was important that as we move forward, that we have a measure of certainty with how we are going to start to roll out the debt restructuring. Because without this, sir, we cannot reach a level of debt sustainability by 2023 of 60%, which is our internal target. We have stated that that is our objective. And in order to meet that, sir, we have to make sure that we start on the path, sir, of making sure that we manage our debt in a way that's consistent with achieving that objective. And so whilst we've had the mini budget, sir, we are about to undertake the fiscal reforms that are required to accompany the mini budget, sir. This comprehensive debt restructuring is now required in order to be able to reach debt sustainability of 60% by 2033. Now, sir, 10 years ago, at 65, 66%, we did not envisage that we will be at 157 in 10 years percent of GDP. And sir, whilst in that very short space of time, we went from being one of the most fiscally prudent countries in the world to now being the 3rd highest indebted country in the world, sir. We can commit to Barbadians that we will work this through to make sure that there's a level of respectability that's brought back to the public finances in Barbados. Sir, Section 6 says where the voting thresholds specified in paragraph A and B of section 5 are not obtained, the instrument holders shall be deemed to have refused the restructuring proposals, and the proposal should not be binding on instrument holders who did not tender their specific debt restructuring in response to the government's offer letter. Now, sir, we have worked in as much a collaborative manner as we can with the various credit committees. But time, sir, is critical for Barbados. Time is critical. And because time is critical, sir, in order for us to start to repair a lot of the infrastructural damage that has taken place in the last 10 years, sir, in order for us to start to deliver or improve the delivery of public services in Barbados, whether it is for transportation, whether it's for garbage trucks, whether it's just for maintenance inside of the roads, whatever you name it, sir, Barbados must start to plan out, sir, our recovery. And so therefore, sir, we need to make sure that these things culminate together in a way that allows us, sir, to deliver on the mandate that was given to us by the people of Barbados on May 24th. But certainly, sir, more importantly than that, to make sure that when Barbadians take up their hard-earned money and they invest it in any future government paper, sir, that when people look at the conduct and the management of the public finances, sir, that people will have the confidence to make sure that they can tell their grandchildren that they can invest in 25 or 30-year government securities with safety because they know that the government is responsible. Sir, accountability is important. We have said to the people of Barbados, and we will continue to say to the people of Barbados, to hold us accountable. But in holding us accountable, sir, we must remind people that we did not create the problem. We are going to fix the problem. And when this Barbados economy recovers, sir, I hope that the people, sir, will remember that we are the ones who faced the problem and we fixed the problem. Sir, the rest of the bill, the first schedule and the second schedule, lays out the offer that was sent to, the exchange offer that was sent to Barbadians on September 7th. As we speak, there's been a range of forums to educate the public, which was organized between the central bank and our debt advisors. And so we have sought where possible to make sure that as we seek to bring resolution to this debt restructuring, that we involve as many people as possible. Now, sir, time is still on our side. Time is of the essence. And so therefore, as we seek to bring resolution with respect to getting the support of the International Monetary Fund, we must now embark in making sure that the order with respect to the debt restructuring that is executed, whilst we also simultaneously, sir, make sure that the fiscal reforms within government, that those take place. Sir, with those few words I want to say to this House, with those few words, sir, I want to say that on behalf of the staff, certainly of the Ministry of Finance, of Economic Affairs and Investment, that we have worked hard, sir. Hard, I mean, I hear people talk about public servants this and public servants that, but sir, I can tell you, the staff at the ministry, they have worked hard to make sure that we can bring measures like this. I want to thank, sir, the staff of the Office of the Attorney General, sir, who have worked tirelessly hard to bring this here. But sir, this is the start. And I want the public of Barbados to recognize that public servants do very, very good work, sir. Very good work. And without that very hard work that the public servants do, sir, we would not be here today. Because certainly the Prime Minister, myself, and my colleague from St. Michael South Central, we rely, as the rest of the members in here, we rely on the hard work of the public servants who recognize, sir, who recognize good leadership, sir, and are prepared to put in the extra hours to make sure that Barbados reaches safety. Sir, I am proud to stand here and introduce this bill today because I know how important this is to the future of Barbados. And I hope that the people of Barbados recognize that the sacrifice that is being asked of those who are holders of these securities, that as we seek to improve the delivery of public services, sir, that they will see how this fits in with the overall, not just for debt sustainability, but for providing a platform where strong and robust economic growth can return to this country. And so, sir, I want to give my full support to this bill and to encourage certainly the members of the public to continue to engage with the government through the Ministry of Finance, such that any queries that persons may have, that we can respond in as timely a manner as possible. And sir, with those few words, I am obliged to you. Oh, sorry. I know, sir. I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Honourable member for St. Michael West.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I shan't be as long as the honourable member from Christchurch East Central, because he took about 50% of the time for the presentation to reflect upon the maladministration of the last government, which I suppose is understandable. He having done it, I don't have to go there. I want to welcome you back, Mr. Speaker, to the chair. And I really do apologize for starting on this note, and I really do hate to do so. But it cannot be proper that I'm handed a bill that we are going to be debating in this House today, just as the honourable member who presented the bill stands to his feet. That is certainly improper. This is about the 12th or 13th sitting of this session of Parliament. It has happened repeatedly. I have not said a word about it, and probably would not have said a word about it today except for the nature of the bill that we are discussing. We are not talking about a community project in the Bayland or in Bayville. We are not talking about road slippage in St. Andrew. We are not talking about small housing development in any part of the St. James. We're talking about a matter that will affect the lives of thousands of people in this country. This is an urgent and seriously important matter. It will affect the well-being of very important financial institutions in this country. And it cannot be proper that this bill appears just as the honourable member stands to his feet to present it. After all, Mr. Speaker, there are 28 on the other side. There are 28 there may be more of us over here than you see or think, but there are 28 on the other side. And certainly that cannot be proper. I really would like to adjure the leader of government business in the House to ensure going forward that that type of thing does not happen. I mean, it's bad enough that the bill appears Monday or Saturday or Sunday, but that it appears the moment the honourable member stands to his feet, that is certainly not good enough. This administration is far better than that, is far more capable of getting this business in such order to be in a better state of preparedness and readiness than that. I understand the urgency of the matter, of the issue. I understand that you have the pressure of IMF strictures. I understand that you have to respond to certain timetables, schedules, if you want to get your stuff approved. I understand all of that. That notwithstanding, it cannot be good. It certainly is not proper. In 2018, especially in the month of September, that a matter like this is brought to our attention the moment the honorable member stands here. And I'm not attacking the honorable member. I am simply saying that this ought not to be the case. Mr. Speaker, you may not respect the honorable member from St. Michael West, but you had better respect the office of the Leader of the Opposition. You need to respect the process, and the process is being repeatedly disrespected. You need to respect the public right to fair and meaningful debate and exposure of these matters which directly and so urgently affect their lives, and for over such a long period in these very significant ways. And I appeal to you, Mr. Speaker, to use your office to whatever extent you are able to do so, to implore those who are responsible for getting these matters to the attention of members of Parliament, that they would do so at the earliest possible hour, and that when it is done, it be remembered that there's an office of the Leader of the Opposition, and that common courtesy suggests that that information should be shared with him as early as is possible. Now, Mr. Speaker, the honorable member took quite a bit of time, and I'm not complaining about the length of time he took. I'm just reflecting perhaps on the not best use of that time in presenting, because this is a matter that Barbadians need to be brought up to speed on. This specific matter and the wider context in which it is being brought before them. This is not simply the story of changes with respect to arrangements around securities and that having to do with government debt to a number of persons and institutions. Mr. Speaker, this is a story of something called a 6% primary balance, which this government is committing itself to achieve over the next 4 years. 6% primary surplus with respect to the way we handle our financial affairs. That is the story of pain, Mr. Speaker. No amount of reflecting upon the misdeeds of the last administration will help the Barbadian public to understand going forward the degree of pain to which we are going to be exposed. And that is the story. The story must repeatedly be referred to as to how those who preceded you underperformed, to put it rather euphemistically. But beyond that, Barbadian public needs to hear and understand, and I said this before, perhaps in your absence, Mr. Speaker, in very clear terms, the pain that awaits us tomorrow. In fact, the nightmare began a few days ago with the exercise at the central bank and the declaration to this country that we were making arrangements in the terms with reference to these securities that are under debate here today. And Barbadians need to understand that going forward, there are going to be many painful days. And I think every opportunity this government gets to let Barbadian public understand those things in stark terms, I think it's in the interest of the country. And those who have been elected by the people and who have been sent to this honorable chamber to champion their cause must be the ones up front in so doing. Mr. Speaker, I understand the role of the technocrat. I understand the role of the bureaucrat. I understand the role of the special advisors and consultants and all of that. But those who have the primary responsibility for communicating these things to the people of this country are those elected and sent here. So when it is good news, we want to hear those who are on the front benches of government. But we also, when it is bad news, want to hear them and not their surrogates. And I'm serious about that because Barbadians need to be made to understand and to be told up front and face to face by their representatives what is our likely plight going forward. So this is a story of a 6% primary surplus for the length of the next 4 years and all the pain that that implies. This is a story of the advisability or ill-advisability of declaring a default on your external debt and the timing that you took into consideration when you declared that default. And the jury is still out on that, as to whether or not it was the right thing at the right time for this administration to do. I'm no economist, but I've heard views on either side and equally strongly expressed that we have occasioned some of the pain which is likely to befall us because of that declared default on external debt when we did it and at that time. And this is the story, our reputation, the business of negotiation, which is now in the public domain on the question with respect to what we're going to do to restructure the external debt here, which faces us. This is what the story is about. So let's not forget what the last administration did. Let's never forget that. Let's never let the people forget that. But as we go forward, let's make sure that people understand exactly what we are dealing with, because we are past the stage of talk. We're past the stage of words. And we're now at the point of pain and peril, and we've got to address that business. This is a story of a country that is bankrupt. This is a story of a country that is bankrupt. And those who have spoken in bearing bad news on behalf of government in recent times have been using those terms. And therefore, we as principals must, when we speak, cause people to understand, yes, this is a country which is bankrupt. You see, we are embarking on a long journey. And as we embark on a long journey, we will provide you with breakfast. But the voices tell us, the voices which we should know, say we're bankrupt and we can't afford to pay for the breakfast. We've got to be very clear. We've got, yes, you didn't know that we were embarking on a long journey? You didn't know that we were going to be given breakfast? Yes. But the Director of Finance says we are bankrupt. We can't afford breakfast. And therefore, people must be made to understand. The government, as you embark on this long journey, would like to give you breakfast, but the country cannot afford the breakfast. And I see the Honourable Member St. George North nodding in the affirmative, so at least he understands. So this is a story of a country which is bankrupt. This is a story of a country which is plagued by a lack of robust.
Mr. Speaker, on a point of order, and a question being posed to the Honourable Member and Leader of the Opposition.
What's the point of order, Honourable Member?
The Honourable Member is misleading this chamber as well as the public. And I would like the Honourable Member, Leader of the Opposition,
What regard, sir?
to tell the public in his presentation what would he have done differently, or the opposition
Honourable
would have done
Honourable
differently.
Member, there's no point of order.
During your presentation.
Honourable Member, there's no point of order. Continue, Honourable Member. Mr. Michael West.
I don't mind any interruption at any time. It tells me something. They're listening and they are bothered. The ones from St. George are bothered. The honourable members from St. George. One is nodding in the affirmative and one is rattled in his seat. So he stumbles to raise a point of order which he does not successfully raise. And he puts before us something with which we are familiar, because he's asking of me what I would do in the circumstance. It seems to me that's a question that your side asked often of the last side, that the last government asked of your side when you were in opposition. Yeah, you waited till this moment to tell us. And we're discussing the solutions. And all I'm saying is, if we're going to discuss these solutions, bring them early
Please,
to
no
our...
cross-talk, please.
If we are going to discuss these solutions, bring them early to our attention so that we might be prepared for a proper debate.
Honourable member, please, no cross-talk in
And
this
so this is a
honourable
story
chamber.
of a country whose economy does not reflect any robust growth dynamics. That's a serious thing. The honourable member for Christchurch, as a businessman, understands Christchurch West understands these things. And he's nodding in the affirmative as well. I appreciate every nod in the affirmative. And so you're going to go through a period of austerity here, which means reduction in government expenditure, government spending. That is going to be an imperative if you want IMF help, which will mean, because of the cutbacks, shortfalls and reductions in consumer spending. That is what it will mean. If this country is to grow, that growth therefore must come from investment, or our exports must exceed our imports, and that balance must be achieved. And if you're honestly sitting in one of these honourable seats today, I think you will accept government has to cut back. You will accept that there will be consumption in the private sector and personal spending that will be cut back in this country, especially when you reduce people's access to monies that they had expected and planned around. I do not know how optimistic you are about investment. I heard the honourable member from St. James Central reportedly in the media suggesting yesterday that there is a bundle of foreign investment which is not far beyond our reach and which we expect to materialize. And if that's the case, we applaud ourselves for that achievement. But we need investment of the level that we have not seen in Barbados for quite some time. And the likely outflow from our current situation does not suggest that that investment is likely to be forthcoming over the next 4 years, not to the extent that we need it. And since we are not exporting, and since we continue to import, we're in a serious stress. And what I wanted to suggest, the honourable member for Christchurch West would appreciate this, as I said. Because if these scenarios that I now refer to actually hold true, what that means is that after 4 years of austerity and 4 years of pain, at the end of the day, we are going in a situation that reflects not only recession, but something else which I don't even want to contemplate right now. And those who are economists in this chamber would know what we're talking about. Because if we don't get past this 4-year period successfully, and if we don't find ways of growing this economy and exporting at the same time while we do these cutbacks, we are in serious, serious stress at the end of that 4-year period. Now, I notice that much which attaches itself to this program of governments, this BERT program of government, even with respect to the rearrangements for these securities, take us down to the year 2033. It means that there are those who understand that we are in for the long journey. We need more than breakfast. We need lunch, we need dinner. But the country is bankrupt. So where's the breakfast going to come from? Far less the lunch and far less the dinner. And we got to talk to Barbados in these terms. We can fluff it about and talk about the Dems. That story must be told, like I said, repeatedly, never forgotten. But at the same time, we have to let Barbadians know there is a dark day ahead over which we must preside. And here is where we're going to have to go as a country and explain it in very stark terms. To me, that is what this story is about, Mr. Speaker. Now, at a prayer session here, Mr. Speaker, when we discussed, I think it was the central bank amendments and the cancellation of debt to the central bank, canceling of debt to the central bank, I do recall asking the same honorable member who spoke last here and just took a seat about the peril or pain to which private securities holders in Barbados would be exposed, whether individuals or institutions. And I think the assurance was given that they would be protected from pain and peril. The word used was ring fence. Mr. Speaker, I hear today now a slight variation on what was said previously, and that is with respect to those who are holding government savings bonds, there will be protection. But others are exposed to the peril. Other private holders of government securities are exposed to the peril and the pain that these rearrangements will bring. It's a reality. And all I'm trying to say is, when we speak to Barbadians in this dark day about the dark deeds that we will have to do in order to right this economy, we've got to speak to them in clear terms so that they have a certain knowledge. There's no ambiguity. There's no way that it might be misunderstood what we're trying to communicate. Because I walked away with the understanding that private security holders, individuals as well as institutions, especially individuals, would have been protected from this. But now we're hearing it is those who hold government savings bonds. I see members looking a bit confused as to where I'm going. We can check the records. We can check the records. Right from this very position, I asked the said very honorable member with respect to that matter. And that's the response. That I don't want to, I'm not coming down on the honorable member. He gave it to us as he understood it then, perhaps. I'm saying.
Honorable member, if you want to speak, you have to stand up and address the chair, please. Please.
Mr. Speaker, the use of the term dark deeds does not imply or seek to attribute to the government any nefarious motives. I'm simply saying the day upon which we are about to embark will be a cloudy day. I'm just using imagery, just being figurative, the dark deeds, the painful actions that the government must undertake and that the people must endure. And it's going to be dark. That's all I'm saying. No nefarious motives to this government. No, not at all. Not at all. All right? So this dark period, which is about to descend upon us, must be properly understood by the people as to what is likely to befall them. And the government's role is principally to ensure that they do understand, that they do understand this. Now, I understand those who are in possession, holders of government bonds acquired between 2015 and 2016. That narrow group, and I don't know how many persons there are, but that narrow group is the group to be protected in all of this. All others, I am to take it, are exposed to loss with reference to the measures that we are debating here today. Mr. Speaker, the honorable member and the government at some proper time must seek clearly to let Barbadians know that we are not just into any IMF program, we are into an EFF, Extended Fund Facility program, which is a serious program, as I understand it, and all the economists here can correct me if I'm wrong. But as I understand it, no other country in the Caribbean has gone to any 4-year extended facility program with the International Monetary Fund. That is serious pain, Mr. Speaker. And I am reading here from this extract. That's not the one I want. This is the one I want. And this is IMF fact sheet, Mr. Speaker. What is the...
Can I make a document, sir?
If you want, not a problem. What is the EFF designed for? The Extended Fund Facility was established to provide assistance to countries experiencing serious payments imbalances because of structural impediments. This is not simply This is not simply a balance of payments problem. This is not simply a balance of payments problem that we're trying to address, and is more than a debt problem that we're trying to address. The issue here, the EFF was established to provide assistance to countries experiencing serious payments imbalances because of structural impediments. Two, and all I'm saying is Barbadians need to hear that. I'm sure it's not in dispute in this chamber. Barbadians need to know that this is not just some everyday IMF program, such as we had on 2 occasions, I think, or 3 previously in this country, where you're going for 18 months and you come back out. I don't know if it's been made clear. I tell you, people come up to me and ask me questions, and if they ask me questions, it means that they're not clear. Maybe they're not listening to the Honourable Member from St. James Central. Maybe they're listening too much to the Honourable Member from St. George North. Always fraught with danger. But it's established to provide assistance to countries experiencing serious imbalances because structural impediments. Structural impediment means a lot of correction has to take place at the core, at the structure, Mr. Speaker. 2, characterized by slow growth and an inherently weak balance of payments position. When a country borrows from the IMF under this EFF, it commits to undertake policies to overcome its economic and structural problems. Under EFF, these commitments, including specific conditionalities, are expected to have a strong focus on structural reforms to address institutional or economic weaknesses, and so forth and so on. All I'm saying is, Mr. Speaker, this is not just a run-of-the-mill, everyday, friendly, standby arrangement with the International Monetary Fund. This is a program that will have initiatives intended to address, and deeply so at the core of our economic and social life, those structural issues that we have to address in order to correct course. Now, we do this, and it's all right to understand that there's a structural correction we need to make. It is all right to understand that we're entering into an IMF program, but this type of program is being entered into at a time when none of the main planks of the Barbadian economy, none of them performing, not a single one of them. Tourism is performing best. And even the Minister of Tourism will tell you, the Honourable Minister of Tourism will tell you, we're seeing numbers, but the spend is not there. We're seeing indicators of numbers to come, but the spend is not there and has not been for a while. So our best performing sector is underperforming. We are going into an IMF.
It is with the greatest reluctance that I rise, Mr. Speaker, only to remind my honourable friend who is leader of the opposition that he had given an undertaking that the document that he has in his hand would have been made a document of the House.
I have so
that
requested,
all of us would have
Honourable
had the benefit of perusal. He stopped quoting and then said, etc., words to that effect, and thereafter did not make it a document of the House. And we would want to have the benefit of sight of it, sir.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I have no problem with that, and I only stopped quoting because I didn't want to take as long as the Honourable Member of Christchurch East in his East Central in his presentation. But we could have gone on. We could have gone on to talk about the fact that Barbados qualified for 435% of its quota, but we only got $290 million, just over 200% of our quota, and the reasons for that. But I don't want to take time. God, that's the government's responsibility to tell the country that. But the document is here for your perusal. As I was saying, it's only the tourism sector that is performing, and that is to be mentioned only with respect to its underperformance. But manufacturing is not performing. Agriculture is not performing. Construction is not performing. And the international business sector is under serious, serious stress. And the sector which in recent years, upon the backs of which we have built the middle class of Barbados, is now receding. with respect to the amount it is contributing in terms of taxes to the purse, the public purse and the economy of Barbados. So none of the major sectors, Mr. Speaker, none of them right now at this moment is performing. And that, I say that only to say, that is the context within which, and the Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central understands these things as well, that is the context within which we are going into an IMF program, which is not a run-of-the-mill, every day, every week friendly IMF program. This is a serious IMF program called an EFF, and which normally extends for a period of 3 years. We are going into it for a period of 4 years, which means over the entire life of this administration, this economy, this country, its social infrastructure, all these things are going to be under stress. And that is what Barbadians need to hear and to know. The breakfast that we're being given does not mean that there's a picnic. There's pain and there's peril, and that has to be addressed. Now, the IMF did not, at least at the staff level, did not agree to give us $290 million because that's what we wanted. As far as I understand it, we wanted much more. As far as I understand it, we wanted more than that, and our needs require that we get more than that. But I think in this, the IMF is indicating, as had already been admitted by the government, that we are at a very poor state of well-being nationally, economically in Barbados at this time, and that this is all the fund will consider giving us at this time because of the precarious position of the economy. What this is saying to me, and should be saying to us, is that the International Monetary Fund is not prepared to fund Barbados out of this problem. The fund is not prepared to fund us out, finance us out of this problem. But that we're going to have to do some serious redress of our own internal dynamics in order to turn this economy around. Well, I say that to us for what it is. I say that to us for what is worth.
I remember for St. James.
I didn't hear.
There's a procedure.
I didn't hear the aside.
Please.
I didn't hear the aside, Mr. Speaker, but I suspect it didn't amount to much that was relevant. Now, I want to make a serious point additionally, and it bears on something that the Honourable Member from Christchurch East Central honestly said during his presentation. Now, we're going to have to make economic adjustments, serious economic adjustments in Barbados. Everybody knows that in this chamber. It just needs to be better understood outside in the public arena. We are going to have to make some significant institutional adjustments as well. And all I've heard thus far is that we got to pay some attention to what is happening with respect to state-owned enterprises. And all I've heard thus far is that a survey was conducted to which 5,000 people responded on this matter of what do we do about state-owned enterprises. I do not know what people have said in those 5,000 responses, because that has not been said. I do not know if the responses have been analyzed to the extent that the government understands what people are saying about those state-owned enterprises. So it's one thing to say, we did a survey, we consulted with people, and over 5,000 responded. What did they say? And would it be true to say that decisions are only to be made, or were only made after those surveys were received back? Or did we in fact make up our minds what we plan to do, and then just go simply through the motions of a survey? But whatever is the reality, the fact remains that we are going to have serious adjustments in the institutional life architecture of this Barbados. Not only economic adjustments, but institutional But perhaps even more pertinent, did I give you the right document, Mr. Marshall? Perhaps even more pertinent, perhaps even more pertinent, Mr. Speaker, is that we are going to have to make serious adjustments in the social sector of Barbados. Now, I hope this point is not missed, because from the time this administration came to office, recognizing where we were in this country as an economy, I have heard about plans and proposals to restructure our economy, plans and proposals to address our economic situation. I have heard about this economic team comprised of the Honourable Member for Christchurch East, the Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central, the Honourable Member, the Honourable Ambassador, may I, with your leave, call his name, and I'm doing a positive light, Dr. Clyde Masco, and then some other stars. Some other stars.
Leader of the opposition, as much as I appreciate, he's been misleading the chamber and the public inadvertently, I believe. As much as I appreciate his confidence in my economic skills and my overall intelligence, I wish to assure him it is the member for East Central, not East, who's been part of that team. My expertise, many and varied, don't extend to economics.
Yeah, and I apologize for the error, Mr. Speaker. I did mean the Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central, but I could easily have gone there, and anybody could easily have made that mistake, because the Honourable Member for Christchurch East is so energetic and enthusiastic about getting his hands to the plow and getting the job done. I would not be surprised at all if he found himself, unofficially so, as a member of the economic team. I really would. But the economic team, these honest guys whose names we reference, and then some other stars that come out of other firmament. And I do not mean to reflect upon them at this point, but the point I want to make is this: we are going to have to make serious economic, institutional, and social sector adjustments. And I have not been hearing about any involvement or input from anybody with that social sector disposition or inclination who have been involved in evolving some of these plans. You see, when the pain falls, it will not fall on the central bank as a building or on the commercial banks downtown as a building. It will fall on the employees and their families and their children. And you, Mr. Speaker, might I suggest, as a person experienced and disposed to having a social services consciousness and stuff like that, understand where I'm coming from. That you can't only treat to this at the level of the economics and the economic team, the economy. The Honourable Member for Christchurch East Central distinctly said, we have looked at all of the economic indicators. We have looked at all of the institutions. We have looked at the liability to which they are exposed, and we have prepared and planned towards that. I want to hear what the government is doing about preparing a management infrastructure for dealing with the social sector fallout that will emanate from this program. That's where I'm coming from. And I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, you understand that clearly. I don't know of any studies, he says, that they have, the Honourable Member from Christchurch East Central who spoke, they've taken a look at all of these institutions to make sure everything is all right. I do not know how studies have been done to show what the institutional fallout will be, and as to guide what the government's response should be. When we start to restructure those state-owned enterprises, what study to this date has been done to check the fallout arising from those institutional adjustments. It's all right to make sure that your commercial banking sector is fine. It's all right to make sure that your central bank authority is fine and all of the other financial institutions. But there's some other institutions which are not financial, which perform a significantly social role or social service role. What is to befall and what studies have been done to determine what ought to happen to them and the fallout that will result from that occurrence? What studies have been done to determine the social sector fallout? I have not heard the name of one person associated with social policy and social services mentioned as being part of the management process, the conceptualization process of this program that we are entering in. So we're going into an IMF program, an EFF to be specific, for 4 years to be clear. And yes, and I know you understand these things too, Honourable Member for St. James Central.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I don't normally like to interrupt the Honourable Member when he's in flight, but he clearly is misleading the House. He did it several times. This is not an IMF program. This is the Barbados Economic Restructuring Program, supported by the International Monetary Fund. And this is important to understand, because the International Monetary Fund did not set this program for us. We have set the program, and we intend to keep to the program because we are going to own this program. And for the Honourable Member to repeatedly say that it is an IMF program when it is not, it is the IMF is supporting Barbados in its program.
Mr. Speaker, I do not mind being interrupted if it is thought that I'm misleading the House, only in cases where the Honourable Member who interrupts me is misled himself. Now, Mr. Speaker, let's talk about that, because I really didn't want to go there. But this government is claiming this program fine. There will be a day when perhaps you would have preferred that you had not claimed this program. But this government is claiming this program fine. But Mr. Speaker, you may be familiar with the IMF Article 4. I'm sure the Honourable Member for Christchurch West, Article 4 consultation, the last one on Barbados, which would have been conducted when the former administration was in office. Mr. Speaker, I urge you, go read that Article 4 consultation, and you will see this program into which we are now entering, though not spelled out in detail in that Article 4 consultation, outlined right there. Mr. Speaker, I dare the Christchurch West to go check it. Now, there may be some specifics into which this government leads us, but the broad outline of the program was there. Address your expenditure, cut it back, and cut it back big time. Address state-owned enterprises, address wages and salaries, address debt. It is all there, and this is what we are doing. The specifics may be owned by this government, but the program is there because the IMF gave this program to the last administration, and the last administration did not accede to their directions. This government has. You want me to stop? You want me to stop? I'll give you all a break. I can come back. I'll give you all a break. I'll come back.
I remember for St. James North.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that these honourable proceedings be suspended until 2:30 this afternoon.
The question is that this honourable chamber be suspended until 2:30 in the PM. All those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say no. This honorable chamber is suspended until 2:30 in the PM.